A lot of people believe that Tesla's supercharging network, it's the only real supercharging network in the United States. Well, why have other car manufacturers not built their own networks? I mean, Volkswagen, right? Toyota, why haven't they built charging networks? Well, here's the thing. Volkswagen actually did invest $2 billion into building the largest charging network in America. But then this happened. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching The Electric Viking. Great to see you. I'm sorry for the weird angle here. I've got my leg up on the desk because I've just had some surgery on my foot. If you want to know more about that, I'll put a link in the description below. Now, Volkswagen spent more than $2 billion building the largest charging network, well, a legitimate rival to Tesla's charging network in America. But unfortunately, things didn't quite go right. The nation's largest public EV charging network was created by court order. Seriously. In 2016, the year after Volkswagen's Dieselgate emissions scandal came to light, the German car maker agreed to make amends by spending $2 billion building electric car chargers and encouraging EV adoption. The goal was to compensate society for the air pollution created by Volkswagen's faulty engines and to pepper the nation with electric car chargers. Now, things didn't quite go as planned. In the years since, the company that arose from that settlement became known as Electrify America, and it has built thousands of charging ports across the country, from the visitor center of the Grand Canyon to Newark. But advocates say that many of those chargers, in fact a very large number, which are intended to help America shift to EVs, they don't work. Those non-functioning chargers, they say, are slowing the transition to EVs and violating the original purpose of the settlement agreement that Volkswagen reached with the United States government. I consider this to be public money, said David Rempel, a professor emeritus at the University of California at Berkeley, and the author of a recent study on charger reliability problems in America. There should have been more oversight on how this money was spent. Volkswagen was an unlikely birthplace for the nation's largest public EV charging network. In 2015, the company admitted to installing software that allowed its vehicles to cheat on emissions tests, only preventing the emissions of dangerous air pollutants like nitrogen oxide when the cars were being tested by regulators. But when they weren't being tested, they were spitting out cancer-causing chemicals. In a settlement with the federal government and the state of California 1 year later, Volkswagen agreed to spend $10 billion fixing or buying back the faulty cars, $2.7 billion on addressing the air pollution it had caused, and $2 billion to build out a charging network and educate the public on electric cars. 7 years later, Electrify America's almost 4,000 chargers make it the largest fast charging network in the United States, after Tesla. Now, a fast charge can take only 20 minutes to fill an EV battery to 80%, compared with slower charging, which generally might take you all night. And although Tesla has promised to begin opening its charging network to other vehicles, which it has begun doing, Americans with non-Tesla EVs largely have had to make use of a much smaller set of fast public chargers dominated by Electrify America. And this has, probably led to a lot of people buying an EV and then selling it and buying a gasoline-powered car for their next car. The network has come under fire for its day-to-day performance, which is often abysmal. Almost all non-Tesla charging networks have significant reliability issues. According to the study, co-written by Rempel, only 72.5% of all fast public chargers in the San Francisco Bay Area were operating at the time of the study in early 2022. The data analytics company J.D. Power estimates that just 80% of all charge attempts nationwide are successful. But a lot of people believe that number is actually closer to 50%. But even among a group of struggling companies, Electrify America stands out for being so bad. In a recent JD Power study, the company ranked last in consumer satisfaction among fast charging networks, scoring a 538 on a 1,000-point scale. In comparison, Tesla's network scored a 740. The satisfaction survey is limited to users of the PlugShare app, which makes up the vast majority of non-Tesla EV drivers, but cannot be considered representative of all EV owners. In the Berkeley study, researchers found that 7% of Electrify America stations didn't have a cord long enough to reach the vehicle they were trying to charge. Anthony Lampkin, the Vice President of Operations at Electrify America, says the network is working hard to improve reliability. Many people don't believe him. He said, "It's inevitable that chargers break. It just happens. There is heavy wear and tear." Still, drivers are reporting enormous frustration when attempting to charge on the network. Broken screens, faulty payment systems, and chargers that give much less than their maximum charging speed, providing an experience that has been quite negative. Ralph Megner, a real estate consultant and the owner of an electric Ford F-150 Lightning, regularly drives his truck between Arkansas and California, and he has logged dozens of charging sessions across multiple charging networks. He said this, "Electrify America is the worst. They're dead last, and by a wide margin." He recalls stopping in Albuquerque at an Electrify America station in a Walmart parking lot, only to discover after trial and error that each one of the 4 charging ports available was broken. Unfortunately, this is a common experience. Megner has testified about the network's reliability in front of the California Air Resources Board, one of the regulators that oversees the Electrify America plan. My experience with Electrify America is that out of any 4 chargers, one of them is completely dead, 1 or 2 of them are downrated, and there might be a 4th charger that is working, he said. Now, what he meant by downrated was that this means when a station has switched to a lower charging speed. And what he means is a charging speed that is really slow. Nancy and Bruce Bell, a retired couple living on Whidbey Island in Washington State, also recalled problems of broken Electrify America chargers and cords that didn't reach far enough to charge their Chevy Bolt. "I just feel like EA, Electrify America, don't care about what they're trying to deliver and do," Bruce said. EV advocates say that as consumers begin to adopt these vehicles in larger numbers, network reliability is essential. If you drive to a petrol station and it's not working, and that's your first experience with an internal combustion car, it's going to be negative. "The game is really about consumer confidence," said Carleen Cullen, the co-founder and executive director of the nonprofit Cool the Earth. "Drivers need to know that they can get in their car and get where they want to go." That confidence is essential as more and more Americans adopt EVs, and Electrify America serves as the foundation of the country's public charging network. Its consumer charging sessions jumped from 268,000 in 2020 to 5.2 million in 2022, according to company data. Research has shown that an estimated 18% of those who switch to electric vehicles end up returning to gasoline-powered cars. And this is in large part due to the inconvenience of broken fast chargers, or fast chargers that are just really frustrating to operate. Cullen points out that in Electrify America's latest draft investment plan, which details how the company will spend the final chunk of the settlement money, the charging network acknowledges performance problems. The plan notes a decline in consumer satisfaction with public charging generally, falling towards the lowest level recorded during the first half of 2023. They talk about maintenance, but then there's no performance requirements or guarantees or actions from Electrify America, said Cullen. In response to questions about adding performance requirements to its next investment plan, Lampkin said Electrify America was following the requirements of the original settlement agreement. "That's what we use as the litmus of how we develop those investment plans for regulators," he said. The agreement reached by Volkswagen and federal and California state officials included fines if stations were not maintained. According to the original agreement, penalties start at $2,000 and rise to $50,000 after 30 days for each failure to implement the improved maintenance plan. However, Electrify America say no fines have ever been imposed by the Environmental Protection Agency or the California Air Resources Board. In other words, they're not following through on what they said they would do. And this means that EA are therefore not really accountable. But consumers report seeing Electrify America chargers that are broken for months at a time without anything happening. Compared to Tesla, which has a vertically integrated system, Electrify America faces more challenges making sure its chargers operate with all types of vehicles, said Lampkin. Now, that's not really true because Tesla's network is now actually supporting all other vehicles as well. But anyway, drivers also use the network heavily, which Lampkin argues adds to the wear and tear on the systems. That said, Tesla appears to have more traffic using its chargers than what EA does, so that doesn't appear to be a legitimate excuse either, in my opinion. There is some evidence that the network is improving. EV Session founder Bill Ferro, whose analytics company tracks charger reliability, said his sampling data over the last few months indicates that Electrify America may now be, improving a bit. The company has recently replaced some of its stations, and I'm starting to think that these replacements are having a positive effect on the health of the network, said Fenn. But advocates say the network should be held to a high standard, since it was built with the public interest in mind. There needs to be independent field testing of these charges, Rempel said. There was no enforcement mechanism built into the settlement. Cullen said the company should commit to better maintenance plans in its final investment plan, which will be approved by the state of California and the federal government in early 2024. But Electrify America's draft plan for California has no such commitments. And the reality is here that EA believes, in theory, that maybe Tesla has too strong of a presence in America, and that eventually its charging network won't be able to compete with Tesla superchargers. It's imperative that the new funding go toward maintaining the stations and replacing older stations. Lynn Mendez, a spokesperson for the California Air Resources Board, said in an email that the new plan includes $80 million for upgrading and replacing older stations. Additionally, Electrify America must implement their maintenance plan for all stations over the full 10 years of the consent decree. EPA spokesperson Remington Belford, whose agency oversees the federal version of Electrify America's plans, said in an email that the EPA's role in overseeing the funds is limited in scope. The company has already upgraded and replaced many chargers across the country in order to improve reliability and charging speeds, he said. For now, though, customers are extremely frustrated, and technically, Electrify America is still rated as the worst charging company in the United States. They put a lot of stations in the ground, and in a lot of the right places, said Megna, the real estate consultant, pointing to large travel corridors across the country that are populated by the company's chargers. But it doesn't matter if they don't work. And here's the thing. A lot of people are buying an EV or testing one and using an Electrify America charger. And they're discovering the process to be more challenging or to not work at all. I mean, that's what happened to Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, right? He took a Ford F-150 Lightning. He tried to charge it using an EA charger. And then you know what he did? The next thing he did was call Elon Musk to see if Ford could join Tesla's supercharging network. And the rest is history. Thanks for watching.